In this video, I'll be reviewing the Willow Wrap Dress from Love Notions. Hi, it's Megan from Sew and Tell Australia. In this pattern review, I'll be reviewing the Willow Wrap from Love Notions, which is this week's Feature Friday pattern, and I'll also be having a little tutorial about how to add pockets, because everybody loves pockets. Now, this review is brought to you by the Sewing Corner, which is my monthly membership designed to create a little you time, connect you with like-minded sewers, and provide you with the resources to be the best sewist that you can be. To find out more about my program, you can check the link in the description below. So as I mentioned, this week is the Willow Wrap Dress. It is one of my favorite patterns from Love Notions. They do their Feature Friday every Friday. It's a $5 pattern US. Works out to be about $7.50 Australian, which is actually over a $10 savings. So it's such a good value to get the Feature Fridays. I used to sort of buy a lot of my patterns through the Feature Fridays, so I have nearly the entire Love Notions collection just through the Feature Friday patterns. So I probably have saved hundreds of dollars over that time. So it's definitely worth keeping your eye out for those. So I think I've made 3 willow wraps now. I've made 2 dresses and 1 peplum. So the first one I made was actually one of the first patterns I cut out with my projector. So I can let you know that the projector files are pretty good. And definitely easy enough to use. So the first one I made was a double brushed poly, and then I did a peplum version over the summer, and my most recent one, which I can't wait to show you, is also a dress length. So the first one I made, I actually just made it as is, no modifications. The second one I shortened to an Empire Waistline because I know that's what I like for my body, and this latest one I also shortened to an Empire Waistline and added pockets, which is what we'll be doing in this video as well. So I have done a video before about how to shorten your waistline to an Empire Waistline. I'll pop the link in the description below so you can go back to that one, but that was also a Love Notions pattern that I demonstrated that on. It's really simple to do, so if you know that Empire Waistline is something that you like for your body, make sure you check out that tutorial as well. So let's take a look at this week's pattern options. The Willow Wrap comes in a pretty decent size range. It starts at an XS and goes up to a 5X. It is a faux wrap style, which means that it's not a full wrap, which would mean that it would open right out. It actually encloses and is fixed. It's a fixed wrap style with only one skirt, whereas a proper wrap style would have sort of 2 skirts at the front which would wrap over each other, but it is a faux wrap style, so it's just a little bit more fabric saving and nicer too, I think, because you don't have to worry about things coming undone and doing bits and pieces. So I'm a bit of a fan of the faux wrap style. It has 2 lengths, so you can either do the dress or the peplum. You can also hack it to be a tunic length if you wanted, which you would just have to cut sort of in between the peplum and the dress line. It's pretty easy to do, and to be honest, I'll probably make one of those in the near future coming into winter for Australia. I like to pair dresses with leggings, so a tunic length is just that really nice in between peplum and dress length, so that you can wear it with like a pair of boots or something like that. The Willow Wrap has a whopping 5 sleeve options, so it has a short, flatter, long, 3/4 and elbow length, and I just think I love when there's lots of different sleeve options because it really gives you that choice of how you want to be. So I've made a flatter version, I think I've made 2 flatter versions actually, and this one I ended up doing the 3/4 length because, as I mentioned, we're coming into sort of winter, so I wanted to be able to wear this dress over winter, and I just wanted that sort of longer length sleeve for that. As with most Love Notions patterns, there is also the full bust option, which is so appreciated for larger busted girls like me. It just takes the stress and thought process out of having to do the full bust option yourself. So having those pieces there already is such a big help. It has 2 necklines. You can either have the higher neckline or the lower neckline. I'm a fan of the lower neckline as I really like my décolletage area, so for me a lower neckline suits me better, and you can also add an optional flounce. I haven't done the flounce yet, but it does look really cute in some of the tester videos, so definitely an option if you want. The other thing is it also has a maternity option, which is always really helpful when you are expecting, so that you don't have to sort of worry about having to make new clothes. You can sort of have ones that go from maternity straight through to nursing, because this will definitely be an easy nursing dress as well, to be able to get your breast out and feed your baby. It is aimed at a confident beginner, but I would honestly say if you take your time, anyone could really do this. The trickiest part I would say would be the binding part, but as long as you use lots of clips, you really should be able to get that one done pretty easy too. The fabric requirements for this one is it's meant for knit fabrics, medium weight fabrics such as a jersey, interlock, double brush poly, ponte or cotton lycra, anything with sort of 25 to 50% stretch. I have found that if you do want to do the flutter sleeves, I find the lighter fabrics such as like the double brush poly or a lighter weight cotton lycra is better. I just think those heavier cotton or heavier fabrics don't tend to give the look of the flutter that you might like. So the drapier fabrics definitely work better on the flutter sleeves. You could also use something like a waffle or a sports performance. You could even really use a French terry if you've got the required stretch. The French terry would be a good one if you wanted that sort of warmer weight winter. And again, if you made it sort of the tunic length, then it really could be a great winter dress, especially if you paired it as well with like a little cami underneath, just to give it that little bit more coverage. It's such a versatile dress. So on average, you'll need about 1.5 to 2.5 meters of fabric, just depending on the options you choose and obviously your size. But you can follow the fabric chart and it will let you know those things. So let's take a look at some of the things you'll need to put together your Willow Wrap dress. So you will need either a serger or overlocker, or you can just use a normal machine if it has a stretch stitch, or even just a zigzag stitch is fine as well. I prefer to use a serger because I think it is just a lot easier when working with knit fabrics, but I appreciate not everybody has one. So if you have a serger, definitely use it. But if you've just got a normal machine, a zigzag stitch or a stretch stitch will work as well. The other thing is either a really good rotary cutter or some scissors, depending if you're using a paper pattern or a projector pattern. I always use my rotary cutter for my projector, but a good pair of scissors is important as well. The other thing I like to have is a little pair of snips. I think they're really handy just to have by nearly every machine, so you can clip any wayward threads if you need to. And they're just a really handy tool or notion to have next to your machines. When working with knits, I'm a big fan of using clips. I think it's much better to use clips when you're using knits because pins don't mark it, or clips don't mark it as easily as pins do. So pins are still important for when you're doing things like quartering your neck bands and quartering your neck area or even your waist area. But in general for knits, I tend to use clips as I find them a lot easier to work with. Obviously, a coordinating thread is very important if you want to make sure that you've got some nice seams on the inside. And one tip that I have is that I will generally use a maxi lock stretch or a stretch thread in my upper looper because I just find it gives that little bit of extra give with the materials that I'm working with. The other little tip I have is to change out your left needle to the main color of the fabric you're working with. So for my dress that I made this time, a printed material, so the surface had black on it but the underside was predominantly white. So I had black in my left needle, which is the one that's going to show, and I've got white here. I do have a little short about that which I'll link in the description as well, which explains it a little bit better. But as I said, I like maxi lock stretch in my upper looper, and I'll generally change out my left needle to be the main color of the fabric I'm working with. You will need to either cover stitch or twin needle your neckline, so you can either use a cover stitch. I have a Baby Lock Euphoria, or you can use a twin needle. I use Schmetz brand because I think they are one of the best on the market. And this one, you can get the stretch version, either a 2.5 or a 4, I think it is. And it's just really great to have a twin needle. You use it in your normal machine. It's got a single shank with 2 needles coming off it, and you can use either 2 of the same color thread, or you can put some on a bobbin if you don't have 2 spools, and then you're able to use a twin needle. So you will need that to finish off the binding on your neckline. I also like to twin needle, well, I cover stitch, but you can twin needle your hems on your sleeves and the hem of your dress. So if you are using a normal machine to sew, you will need either a stretch needle or a ballpoint needle. I tend to use a 90-14 because that's sort of a middle of the range needle, and it's a really good one to do. The last thing that I always have handy is a seam ripper. I know we don't always want to use the seam ripper, but a good quality seam ripper really does make the difference. It's less frustrating, you'll get to unrip quicker. So I'm a big fan of these seam rippers, which I'll link this and all the other notions that I've mentioned below in the description. I don't know about you, but pockets in a dress are pretty much a must for me. So the Willow Wrap doesn't come with pockets traditionally. However, I use the pockets from the Sybil skirt to add pockets to my Willow, and it worked a treat. Now I will note that I realized about halfway through doing it that the pockets that I use from the Sybil skirt are meant to be added at the waistline, and I added mine a little bit lower. So I did have to modify the shape of the pockets. However, it's really simple to do. So you will see that halfway through I mention it, but just so you know before I start showing you what happens, that yes, I do need to modify the shape of my pockets. So let's see how to add pockets. Sewn the pattern up to the end of the bodice. So I've obviously done all my binding on here, and the crossover, I chose to do 3/4 length sleeves. This is just my microphone so that you can hear me. The next bit we're gonna do is to get our skirt pieces. We're gonna attach them so that we can add the pockets. To add pockets to your Willow Wrap, what you'll need is 4 pocket bags or 2 mirrored sets. So when I talk about a mirrored set, it just means that it is 2 that are opposites of each other. So obviously you can see I've cut this one a little bit funny, but they are essentially the same. And I've just used the pocket bag set from the Sybil skirt collection. So it's just a really simple skirt. It's got a few different options, so I'll link that in the comments as well, because that's a really great pattern to have in your arsenal too. And I've just got the pocket bags from there. So once you've got your 4 pocket bags or 2 matching sets, what you're going to do is grab your first skirt piece and lay it right sides up, and you want near the top. And then what you need to do, I'll sort of do it so you can see properly, is we need to measure. I'll get my measuring tape or my ruler. So a good place to put pockets is usually 2 to 3 inches from the top. So you've got to take into account the seam allowance, and then mine's coming out from under the bust because I have made an Empire line. So if I look about, I might even make it 4 inches down. No, I'm going to do 3.5. If I have my 3.5 mil down and I get my first pocket bag, and I want to get the one that is going to be right sides together with the bag bit facing down. So I'll pop that. I'm going to make it 2.5. I changed my mind a lot here. So I'm going to make the pocket bag 2.5 inches from the top. And then I'll get some clips and clip it on. And then to ensure that the other side is the same, we get the other side and we come 2.5 inches down as well. Get our other pocket bag. 2.5. Now because this is knit, it is a little bit more forgiving, so it comes in handy when we are matching them up. But I'll clip that. So that's our first bit done, and what we're going to do is overlock down these edges, but I'll set up my other one first. So I'm going to pop that to the side, get my other skirt piece and lay it right sides up. And again, I'm just going to go to this corner, get my ruler, 2.5 inches down, which is here. Clip this on. And the reason we use measurements is because, well, one, there's no notches for us to do it because this pattern doesn't include pockets usually, but it just means that we get a more accurate pocket placement for when we come to sew it all together. So again, 2.5 inches down, pop our clips in, just make sure my ruler moved. Yeah, pretty good. So now I'm going to, with my overlocker, overlock all these edges. I now have my pocket bags attached. Now you can understitch this if you want to. I think it's a good idea. So what I mean by understitch is you can push the seam towards the pocket bag and give it a good press. And then what you're going to do is just do a stitch close to the edge to understitch that. So I'm going to do that because it does help the pocket bag sit much, much nicer. So I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and do that one, and then I'll show you what it looks like. I'm at my machine. I've set my stitch length to a 3.2. My needle position is in the middle. I'm just doing a normal straight stitch. So now what I'm going to do is I've got my seam pushed towards the pocket bag. I'm just going to pop it under the foot and do a straight stitch all the way to the end, probably about 1/8 of an inch or 3 mil from the edge. And then what you can see, it's hard to see close up, but it just helps it sit a lot flatter. So I'm going to give that a good press again. I actually did the stitch length a little bit too short on this side. It's now a bit wavy, but if I give this a really good press, it should come back into shape. So I'll do that to my remaining pockets, and then we can go to the next bit. We've understitched both our pockets. I've given it a really good press, so it's looking really nice. It's going to be able to be folded under really nicely. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get our other piece and we're going to lay them right sides together and line up our pocket bags. Now, something I have realized with the pocket bags that we use from the Sybil skirt is that they are designed to go at the waistline, and we've pulled them down a bit. So we will need to make some slight modifications, but it's pretty easy, and basically it's just going to be chopping off this bit here. So I'll grab a pencil, and what I mean is we just need to sort of curve it a bit, because these flat bits were meant to be up here, and we haven't done that. We've done it a little bit further down on our bodice. So I'll mark it there, and then what I'm going to do is chop this. So I'm going to chop these two together. And it doesn't matter that it's a little bit off, because what we're actually going to do is serge all the way around. So now our pocket bags are a little bit better. So what we need to do is line up our tops, make sure it's all looking really good. Then we can clip down the sides and all the way around our pocket bag. And what we're going to do is end up with our pocket bags together, and then it will be clipped all the way down the sides. I've got my pocket bag all clipped and ready to go. So what I'm actually going to do is, I find it's a little bit of a nicer finish if you do these corners on a sewing machine. So I'm going to first of all go on my sewing machine and just do these little corners, which I'll take you through, but then you can go over it with an overlocker. So I've done this side. I just need to make sure I'm doing the same to the other side. So we'll make sure this side matches up as well, and we'll need to do the same adjustment that we did to the first side. So we'll match those up. Make sure our pocket bags are aligned. This one's looking pretty good. So obviously if I had realized my error earlier with the pocket bags and how they are for the waistline, I could have done this earlier, but it really doesn't actually matter, because as long as the pair that are together are the same, that's the thing that sort of is the main issue, I guess, as long as they're the same. So I'll do that, and now I'll just give it a bit of a trim. There. All fixed. So now I can go ahead with my clipping, and I'll clip these all together, and then I'll go to my sewing machine and do these little corner bits. Back at my sewing machine, I've got my first pocket under here, so I'm going to start probably about an inch above the corner. Go back stitch a little bit, and then I'm going to come down sort of just past it. Probably went a little bit too far, and then I can start to come around the corner and back stitch as well. So that is literally all I mean. And then what I can do is to clip into this corner. I probably went a little bit too rounded, but it just is going to give a nicer, when you see from the front, it sits a lot nicer when that curve is, when this bit is done with a sewing machine. So that's why I try to not be lazy and do my corners on my sewing machine. So let's do the other bit. This time I'm starting about 1.5 inches, 2 inches from the bottom of the curve. I'll back stitch a little bit, come up. I'm sort of trying to get it just past where the pocket is. Turn it around, and then I can start to come down and sort of back stitch again about 1 inch past. So now I have this one as well, and I'll be able to clip into that corner. So I'll complete the other side, and then we'll take it to the overlocker. I'm at my overlocker now, and all I'm going to do is sew down the side seams. So what I can do is sort of just go around these corners, and I've still got my sewing stitches that I did here. And it's probably going to be a little bit funny actually. I might have to go back and sort of integrate it back in. But I just go around my pocket. Making sure I've caught it as well, because we don't want a hole in our pocket. So this is where you've got to do a little bit of maneuvering around this part. But what I want to do is kind of link up where the stitching is on my normal machine with my overlocking. So that is now there. And I've got to go back and sort of incorporate that back in, because I probably went a little bit too, I could unpick it, but to be honest, I'm just going to sort of come in a little bit, I think. So I've just brought that in a little bit more to be aligned. So now my pockets are all inserted. So I'll do the same to the other side, and then I'll show you the next bit. I've turned this all the right way out now. We have our pockets here on the inside. It is all just sitting beautifully there. looking nice. So I'm really happy with that. So now all you need to do is to continue on with the pattern instructions of attaching the skirt to the bodice, and you'll have a final willow wrap. So I will do that, and then you'll see the final look in my final thoughts and review. Here is my completed willow wrap dress. I am so happy with how this looks. I love the neckline. I love how I've shortened it to the Empire waist. I love how it looks at the back. I love the pockets. So this one hits probably just about knee length. It's hard to show because I can't get enough distance to be able to show you my full body, but it does hit sort of about the knee length, which I'm happy with. Like I said, if I made it again, I would probably do a bit of a tunic length, which would finish maybe here, meaning I could wear it a little bit easier with a pair of leggings and some boots. But some of my favorite features are, I really like the binding on the neckline. I think it's nice and clean. I finished mine off with a cover stitch, but like I've mentioned, you can do it with the twin needle as well. I did the 3/4 sleeves because I do want to wear this one over winter, so it just gives me that little bit more versatility to be a bit warmer without possibly having to wear much of a jacket. I like that it is a more flattering sort of body line. Adding the pockets is good. You do need to be careful when adding pockets that it doesn't add bulk to your hips though. So sometimes when you add pockets, if you don't do them nicely, it can sort of bulk out, and these do sit out a little bit, but it's not anything that I'm too worried or concerned about. I think when moving around, it's not something you're really going to notice, but I'm a big fan of pockets in everything, so it's worth the trade-off for me. Like I've mentioned, it makes a bit of a difference what fabrics you use with this one. So the one I did the flatter sleeves on, the first one with the double brush poly had a really beautiful drape to it, whereas the second one I did with flutter sleeves and the cotton lycra, they just sit a bit stiffly. So I definitely think whenever I'm making the flutter sleeves, I will keep it to the more drapey fabrics rather than the slightly stiffer cotton lycras and perhaps even your pontes or waffle knits. So yes, but all in all, highly recommend getting this pattern. It's just a beautiful make. You can have a higher neckline if you don't like as much cleavage as I do. I have a larger bust, so I'm happy to show a little bit as I think it helps detract from my stomach. So yeah, I'm a fan of that. But if that's not your deal, there is the higher neckline as well. But all in all, very happy with my willow wrap. I hope you enjoyed the review of my willow wrap dress from Love Notions. It is such a great and versatile pattern. I highly recommend checking it out today. If you use the code Megan10, you will get an extra 10%, so it will be even less than $5 US. So I encourage you to use that one, as well as any others. You can use that code at any time to get an extra 10% off your purchases. Make sure you follow along all my socials. I've got TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube obviously, and there's my website as well. I'll pop all those details below, and make sure you check out the Sewing Corner. It is such a great community going on over there. Lots of tips and tricks, and you've got access to me and all of my knowledge and how to help you be the very best sewist that you can be. So thanks for joining me in this review, and I'll see you next time.